informed by global trends and national policy, but to focus on issues and actions specifically relevant to local citizens. You can reach us on Facebook at the Sioux Climate Hub and also by email at siouxclimatehub@gmail.com. In addition to the webinar series, we are now expanding our public outreach and community involvement. So please check out our Facebook page for more details. And finally, just to reiterate, there are no membership fees or requirements, just interest. Tonight's presentation, and thank you for the next slide. Thank you. Tonight's presentation is Freshwater Perspectives in a Changing Climate, Community-Based Research and the Blue Economy, on the Blue Economy and Freshwater Culture. Our presenters are Dr. Jody-Lynn Rebek, Dr. Ahmed Aziz, Anna Caicco, Alejandra Pascagaza, and Arhit Das. Jody is an assistant professor and interdisciplinary researcher in the School of Business and Economics at Algoma University. Her research topics include sustainability, culture, learning, and leadership development. Ahmed is also an assistant professor at Algoma University, but in the School of Finance and Economics. His areas of expertise include labor, international, agricultural, and development economics, and the intersection between these fields. Hannah is a community research academic and PhD candidate in the education.
What's going on? Do you want dessert?
In the education leadership program at Western University. She has also overseen not-for-profit youth programs, community partnerships, and Indigenous research planning. Alejandra and Arhit are two MyTech students from Colombia and India, respectively, who will be sharing their knowledge and insights with us tonight. And just as a reminder, our next presentation will be on Wednesday, June the 29th, Food Security and Climate Change, Harvest Algoma's Food Rescue Program. So one last thing, before we start, I'd also like to mention that Ted McPherson, Daniel Hudson, Paul and Tanya Hazlitt, and Carmen Nelson are key participants that help make these webinars happen. So Jody, it's over to you.
Thank you so much, and I'll invite Alejandra to share their presentation. In the meantime, both Ahmed and I are in the School of Business and Economics, and we have stumbled across each other's interest in water, which is a nice, beautiful collaboration. And this is a project that I've been working on for a while through WaterWise. Over the past year and a half, WaterWise has done World Water Day and different shoreline cleanup events. But we're going to be, we have been working on the research with various people, but we're really excited to really start actually collecting data this summer with our team. So really excited that we made it to this point of time. And I also just wanted to invite everyone to mute if you're not already muted, just so that I heard someone offering dessert and clearly I can't get a piece of that. So if you can mute yourselves until we offer to have some dialogue, we do hope this presentation will be interactive with all of you. So basically, we're going to present our two research projects on the blue economy and the freshwater culture, and we are going to be inviting your input and feedback and questions as well as we go through those different projects. So welcome. And also I want to offer some gratitude for what the Sioux Climate Hub does for our community. Very grateful to all of you, your hearts and your time to volunteer and to make important changes.
Headphones to watch this thing.
Hi, Anna. Do you mind just muting? I don't know if someone can mute everyone. Thank you so much. Okay, so next slide. I want to start with a land acknowledgement. We're on the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe people known as Bauating. In particular, the Anishinaabe people of Sault Ste. Marie tribe of Chippewa Indians, Canoes He Kanig, also known as Bay Mills Indian Community, Batchewana First Nation, Kitsagan Zibig, also known as Garden River First Nation, and their kinship relatives of the Métis Nation. We acknowledge that these peoples are the traditional custodians of the land, water, and all species. We pay respects to their ancestors and to them as original and current land protectors. And I like to join in that spirit of being a land protector or water steward. In one way that I do this, I always like to share with a land acknowledgement how, I'm helping my children and even students acknowledge the land that we're on by just sharing the activities that we do to take care of it. So I don't know if I have any fellow garbage collectors out there, but on hikes or paddles, my children are always encouraged to take care of the land by picking up garbage, sometimes not with gloves, but it's all good. They get a sense of how important it is to take care of the land in that practice. So as we go through this presentation, please think about individual and collective actions that you or we can take to make a difference for our land and water. We'll be asking this at the end of our presentation, but as we go through and we're talking about this research, it's community-based. So we're in the phase right now where we're asking people to tell us, like, are we asking the right questions? Are we using the right methods to get the information across through this interdisciplinary research? So please think about individual or collective actions you see as we go through this. And I'd like to pass this over to my dear colleague, Ahmed, so that he can give you a brief introduction of the Blue Economy research.
Thank you, Jody. So first of all, I'm not sure how many people know me here, but like Rob gave a generous introduction. I'm Ahmed. I work at Algoma University, School of Business Economics. I've started working here about, it's been 3 years. I'm here at Sault Ste. Marie, and it's just like a few months ago, probably 6 months, 7 months ago, Jody came up with this idea that whether we can collaborate on this project where we'll work on freshwater, how we can use freshwater, or how we can, think about freshwater to make the lives of people in this region better. And I find it fascinating and clearly challenging to work on. And as I like challenge as an economist in any kind of research, I kind of hopped onto the bus and started working on it. But from the very beginning of this project, the thinking was always to include the community. We always wanted to hear from the community. We always wanted to incorporate their feedback and inputs into whatever we want to achieve with this project, or whatever we are doing within this project. So a big thank you to Sioux Climate Hub for giving us this opportunity to be able to interact with you in this platform, and to be able to hopefully get some feedbacks on the thing that we're going to present today and the ideas that we're going to share today with you. So as I'm saying, one of the basic purpose of this discussion today for us is to share the ideas of the project that Dr. Rebek, along with our amazing research team, is doing surrounding the blue economy in the context of the Great Lake. The final goal of one part of this project is to create a sustainable blue economy in the Sault Ste. Marie region. But to reach that objective or goal, we have identified very early in the project that not only our research team, but also the community first need to have a good grasp or good understanding of what it even means by the term blue economy. And it's quite natural that most of the people, including some of us in our research team, didn't have a clear idea about this blue economy term, mainly because this whole topic of blue economy has only emerged throughout the past decade or so. And rarely, very rarely, it includes dialogue focused on freshwater. So this project is pretty much one of the very few first projects that is working on freshwater blue economy. We are hoping that there will be many more future projects on it, but this is going to be probably the very first project on this. with the purpose of economic and social development and environmental sustainability in Algoma region and the Upper Great Lakes region in general. As Jody said, this is a community-based action research project, and because of that reason, we always felt that identifying relevant stakeholders in the context of the sustainable blue economy is very critical. So I feel like today's webinar is very important, as this will help us to develop a stakeholder group who can provide input into the process, into our research questions, into the draft methods, to draft the methods that we are going to use, and to collect data from local organizations, individuals who are either interested or involved in freshwater sector. So having said all of this, I think it's time that I pass the baton to Arhit Das, who is a MyTech student from India, and who will kind of elaborate on the idea of freshwater blue economy for us. And we'll try to explain how it relates to the Sault Ste. Marie region in particular and Algoma region in general. So, Arhit, it's your turn.
Thank you so much, Dr. Aziz. So, hey everyone, I'm Arhit, and Dr. Aziz has already aptly put what blue economy actually entails. So, blue economy is a concept which has sustainability at its core, and it seeks to promote economic growth, social inclusion, preservation of livelihoods, and of course, at the same time, taking care of environmental sustainability of the oceans, the freshwater aquatic resources, and of course, all the other coastal areas that we have. So that exactly is something that blue economy focuses on. Water Canada in 2021 suggested that this topic can be used to provide a way to bridge environmental and economic pressures. So how do the Great Lakes fit into it? Well, the unique... I guess I'll just go ahead.
My goodness.
Okay, so the unique placement of Sault Ste. Marie between Lake Superior and the lower Great Lakes has caused most of its economic development to be rooted in the Great Lakes and water transportation and trade potential. So it becomes quintessential to focus on blue economy, especially when it comes to freshwater reserves, whenever we are talking about Sault Ste. Marie and economic development in the same sentence. So it is quintessential to come up with a reliable, structured, and organized approach for blue economy. Alejandra, if you can kindly move to the next slide. So this is a pictorial representation of whatever I just mentioned right now. So as you can see, blue economy is a holistic approach that takes care of not only economic growth, but also the environment at the same time. So all of that coming together, ensuring that sustainability is the primary goal of it, constitutes blue economy. So that sort of defines what blue economy is. If you can go ahead, Alejandra. Okay, so as we go ahead with our research, we have identified few main themes that form the basis of our research for blue economy. The first one that we have here is balancing economic growth, social and environmental benefits for the Great Lakes economy. So it has been identified that the environmental and the economic well-being of individuals who access water economies are intertwined. So it's essential to take both of these things into account when we are talking about promoting or working on building a better solution for what already exists. So one of the solutions entails community-based ownership and giving primary stakeholders the tools and responsibilities for independent and continuous monitoring and evaluation. Hence, collective ideas about balanced growth with local sustainable blue economy are rooted in efficient communication between all stakeholders involved. So that's what the first theme has been identified to do. The next mentioned theme is regional potential for multi-stakeholder partnerships in both the short and long term. So when we are talking about this theme, it basically elucidates identifying relevant stakeholders in the context of sustainable blue economy development. So defining the various clusters of industry may add insight into value chains associated with the blue economy. And therefore, would identify communities and businesses that would benefit from the blue economy of the Great Lakes. That's what the second theme talks about. If you could go to the next slide, Alejandra. Okay, so the next slide talks about challenges with sustainable economic development in freshwater-based economy. So this basically refers to identifying what well-being actually means to the local population, who would be the key stakeholders in the region. Now, that is another challenge that needs to be dealt with whenever we are talking about blue economy in this region. So a solution for the same was proposed through a phased process, which formally builds up a picture of local realities. So identifying the patterns of well-being outcomes, the aspects of societal organization and structures on which these outcomes would reflect, and of course, what processes different people engage in as they struggle to achieve their vision of well-being. These are the three main factors that account towards this particular theme. The fourth theme that was identified was solutions and opportunities at the community level. Well, I personally believe this is one of the most important themes when we are dealing with blue economy. It talks about the importance of inclusion of communities that matter. So one important community who form a group of stakeholders who have connected and relied on the ecosystem of the Great Lakes for a really long time are Indigenous people. The inclusion of Indigenous people are absolutely necessary to avoid any form of misrepresentation, be it in the form of language, context, values, or the culturally rich history that colonial approaches may bring along with it. So, I mean, to bring it down to one statement, solutions and opportunities for Indigenous people should be decided by Indigenous people. That's what the fourth theme talks about. Now, last and probably one of the most substantial themes associated with blue economy is the creation of a sustainable blue economy here in Sault Ste. Marie. Although government policies can influence the overall blue economy, participatory and collaborative rulemaking are used in blue communities. And another action that is really necessary to ensure that whatever we are working towards is actually sustainable is tracking the success of the development by identifying the various value chains associated to the blue economy. Sault Ste. Marie would have the ability to better conceptualize the success or the shortcomings related to the Great Lakes. So these were the main themes that were summarized whenever we talk about the research on blue economy. So Alejandra, if you can move ahead. Okay, so Dr. Rebek, do I go ahead and share the draft survey?
Yeah, for sure. We could put the link in the chat. You should be able to do that.
Yes, there you go. So this is a draft of the survey that we have prepared, and we hope to get your response on it. So it has several questions that pertain to both our research projects pertaining to blue economy as well as the freshwater project. So there are several questions and they have been put together with several purposes attached to it. There are questions that have been put to identify the demand and the lifetime customer value, then to understand the customer satisfaction, the potential for market insights, or even for better understanding for garbage cumulative reduction. There are a lot of questions and it's essential to first establish proper communication as to what we are looking forward to. And this survey forms the basis of it. So Alejandra, if you can move ahead. So this is an example of a question that is included in the survey. So this is an example of the kind of questions that you can expect in the survey. Here you can see that we have asked whether and in which form people prefer to engage with the Great Lakes, and we have a few answers associated with it. And of course, there's always the option to provide with an answer that's not given in this survey. Alejandra, if you can go ahead. Here's an example of another question. So yes, there are several questions that pertain to different aspects that the project deals with. So it will be awesome if you guys can kindly go through the survey and let us know your valuable input on the same. So is there anything that that you would like to add on at this point?
Oh. Okay, I'll open that up right now. So maybe just go back to the two questions and see if anyone has any thoughts about those, and I'll make sure it's accessible. We really do want your input. It wasn't a joke.
Maybe just as a general comment, I'm a consumer of water in the area. Okay, so my questions to you are, I guess you're considering lake. I see you had lake water, and you're considering groundwater as part of your study and survey. So it's lake and groundwater as part of the survey, right? And I guess when you're talking about stakeholders, you didn't mention who the potential stakeholders are. But I mean, we've got a big stakeholder to the south of us. And how is that stakeholder going to play a role in your survey? Because we got a thirsty neighbor down there and they're affecting my quantity and my quality of the water. So how does that impact what you're doing, and how is that going to impact the survey?
So we are working with the Center for Freshwater Research. And hi, Al, nice to see you. And they're going to help us distribute the survey to people that live in that area. There's stakeholders like the energy company that's over there. Their name escapes me right now, but they're going to help us basically get the survey out to Bay Mills community and people on the US side. But we don't anticipate, like, we didn't want to make the survey that large because we wanted to ensure that, you know, the process and the people we engage and the information we gathered is like high quality. So, you know, this is the first time we've ever engaged people on both sides of the border in this type of research. So once we have this area done, like Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, and Algoma district is basically what we're looking at. That includes Bay Mills, but yeah, we'll see what we can get. We do have, I will tell you, it has been a bit challenging to connect with proper stakeholders because, you know, the city provided us with a list of organizations, but to find actual contacts within those organizations is really up to us. That's our next stage. Is we've sent it out to a variety of people who have been engaged with WaterWise in different events that we've had. And we've had some good feedback. I mean, people are sending us ideas and links to other articles that might be helpful for us to consider, but we're not really getting the stakeholders coming forward as of yet. That'll be the challenging part for sure. Does that answer your question?
I think it does. Just one more comment. Talking about stakeholders, I think you addressed my U.S. issue. Like, what about our large industry here in the Sioux, like the steel plant? They're a large consumer of water. They're going to impact everything that you're talking about, environment, economics. Are they part of the stakeholder group as well?
Yeah, they are one of the lists we have. We want it to be very cross-sector and interdisciplinary. So yeah, Algoma Steel, I think Tenaris, the power company, you know, there's industry partners, there's people like Clean North and yourselves who care about water. There's the Indigenous communities. And yeah, we could share the list with you.
I think you've answered my question. You got a pretty diverse group of stakeholders there. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but we just need the contact names. Like, I know Algoma Steel, I can reach out to Brenda Stenta, who's in communications there, and figure out who the right person is. But yeah, if there's anyone, yeah, I could probably send the list to all of you, and like later on after the presentation, if it's of interest, and if we're missing anyone, or if you think there's someone we should reach out to, we are all ears. This is
that's good. I'm just general comment. That's all.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for your questions.
Jody, I think there's some comments in the chat.
So Maria, Great Lakes camping, photography, yes. So some of that would be under the tourism arm of Blue Economy. So there's a lot, like you said 2 words there, camping and photography, where there's a lot of people locally that offer those sorts of things. If you have any ideas on like some key ones, that would be great. We are working with Tourism Sault Ste. Marie to identify some of those agencies. So that's how we're connecting with tourism. Geothermal uses as well. So you mean for energy, geothermal? That was Leslie. Okay. Yeah, that would be great, Peter. Thank you for that. Okay. Yeah, geothermal, like we are connecting with some of the power companies that are here locally. So I imagine it would come through that way. The thing is, we are still learning about the blue economy. It's gained a lot of interest and attention with oceans. So we're just hoping to bring all of this out of the woodwork here. Like, what do we have to celebrate, investigate, and figure out how we can keep it sustainable? And I always like to say it's a life force first, because I think especially in Sault Ste. Marie, take it for granted a little bit. You know, all this fresh water all around us. Maybe not the people on this call, but just in general as a community, it's not something that, you know, we often recognize in our lives as being a really big part. You think of summer, everyone going to their camps. You can't find anyone in town because they're where? By the lake. So I think there's a lot of cool things that we'll find out through this.
There's another question, I think from Sandra, that asks that, are we also considering inland lakes along with Great Lakes? This is a great question, actually. So far, the survey questions that we have is kind of designed mostly based on Great Lakes and Sault Ste. Marie River. But this is a great question. That is why we need your inputs. I think, taking out the inland lakes might be a wrong approach in our research, because this is a part of the Great Lake region. This water, this blue water, the blue capital. So yes, thank you, Sandra, for bringing this to our attention. We might probably have to go on and go over the survey questions again to see how we can incorporate that.
Well, and just to add to that, water is hard to put in. I mean, we could put it in a glass and drink it. Sure, we can put boundaries around it. But in terms of this research, that is something that, I mean, water flows out of our community. So we're like, where do we draw the line? So we're trying to just focus on the popular water places and spots. That's why you'll see the survey talks about beaches that you've heard of, are familiar with, but we always have other at the bottom. So if there's other places that people frequent, so we can get a sense of, the usage. And I don't know if any of you enjoy Lake Superior Provincial Park as much as I do, but I've noticed drastic changes over the last decade, especially with COVID. So I think, there's a lot more to tell about how many people are frequenting these areas and what kind of things are happening to the areas and what can we do to basically grow and benefit these areas in a way that's sustainable. Thank you, Britta, and nice to see your name there. And I'm going to follow up with Leslie too, more about exchange units. That's interesting. Yes, we are. Danielle, are you hoping for individual members of the public to fill out the survey? Yes, we are. So we want to start with people who understand more of how the blue economy may be working in their own lives to give us feedback on these questions. But just like any of you, you live here, you use water, so your feedback is welcome too. So eventually it will go to the general public. I'm going to have to ask for a copy of this chat once we're done, Ted. So do you just want me to continue, or do you want me to answer this while we shift gears a bit? We are on the slide about ideas and input though, right? I'm just cognizant of time. We have half an hour left. Well, 20 minutes for a presentation. Our hit,
I think
Alejandra?
actually your presentation and your question period are merging into one, so that's good.
Yeah.
So however you want to deal with this.
Okay. Yes, Sue, the binational. So BPAC and Dr. Pedro Antonez and Dr. Paula Antonez, they're very close colleagues of mine. So I know that BPAC, Lisa Derricks, I believe that's another good group that we should actually reach out into and present to. I think that would be really helpful. So thanks for mentioning the bi-national efforts. Because that is an organization I know that's focused on that. That is one of the only ones. I know there's some conservatories that are binational, but thank you for that. Government agencies as stakeholders, because we have reached out to people like Trish Westman, who's the Ministry of Environment, and some other scientists like Kara Webster at MNR, and also Eric Emelson. So there's some government representatives that way that we've reached out to. Oh, cottage association. Sandra, thanks for that. That's one that I haven't seen. So we'll have to add that to our stakeholder list. And Hannah, just a note, I hope you're capturing some of this as well, because Hannah's been trying to keep track of stakeholders as we've been bringing them in. So LSPP, Park Naturalist, hi Anna. Yeah, that would be great. We would love it. You can private message me on Zoom and I'll share that just with our group. But that would be great to connect with you. So Great Lakes are part of the watershed. They're enjoyed for sure. The shorelines at camp and public areas, the majority of gatherings are not formal. They're usually social. Yes, you're right. Shore property owners, users. I mean, I'm sure Arhit and Alejandra would love for us to, your task is to walk the beaches of Lake Superior and Lake Huron and, ask people questions. Maybe not on private property. I'm not talking camp owners, but, once the weather warms up, there'll be a lot of people on there. That'd be a great job. I'd love that one. But as I read that, that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, the camp associations. I do know that like Gooley Bay, which is where I'm located in Haviland, they have Facebook groups. So that might be another area that we see. You guys are getting me thinking about things I haven't actually seen on our list. So greatly appreciated. Britta has a good comment on here that it's usually not the individual users. And I know for me, I haven't read all of that yet, but as an individual user of water and someone who cares, I don't feel like I'm really damaging the lake that much. And even promoting Hearterra, where we're trying to get individuals to make changes in the way that they use water and they use materials that may hurt the water. But yes, it's industries, it's, bigger organizations that have a huger impact, most likely, which is what you say, the hidden contaminants. Nestle, yes, they're allowed to draw from the fresh water. I think that's why our shorelines maybe going down a bit. And there's big issues, like we can't tackle all the issues. So I'm also aware of the pipeline that's under the Mackinac Bridge. I worked at Lake Superior State University for a number of years. So that pipeline really concerns me. But I think the more we can promote awareness and engage people here locally, the better. So yeah, you're right, Britta. Yeah, the Conservation Authority we have. Thank you, Anna. And then Sue says, consider also Lake Superior, Lake Huron binational programs, lake-wide management plans. Okay, that's new as well. Yeah, exactly. These are all connected. I love David Suzuki. When he came to the Sioux, he said, the water is like the veins in our body, right? So it's the lakes, but it's also the rivers, the streams, they all feed in somewhere. And Dr. Ashley Murky, who is the director of the Center for Freshwater Research at LSSU, she's inspired a lot of this work because she's brought me a greater awareness of what's happening. But what I was going to tell you is simple changes with our ditches and our drains and the way that we handle snow and the salt and chemicals in that can have a big impact as well. So thank you, Rob, for that. Yes, and Kensington Conservancy, we have a connection there, but I can't remember. So wow, lots of great ideas. Amazing. So any other questions or input on this particular research? And feel free on the draft Google Sheet that I sent, like that you have access to. You can comment now or you can comment later, but we are going to be continuing this live kind of Google Doc with different people over the next few weeks. So, you know, if it's not right now, don't worry. I mean, it's a long survey. We really thought thoroughly about the questions we wanted to ask as a starting point. So your feedback is more than welcome and helpful. Yeah, exactly. Salt usage on the highways. I haven't heard of center. Thank you, Carmen. I didn't hear about that or the bird sanctuary, Marie. So Central Algoma Freshwater Association, that's new to me. So we'll have to add that to find a contact. Oh, thanks, Ahmed, for including that. So our website is there, and we were going to put updates on a website as a way we can communicate with people. I mean, we'll put on social media as well, but really we're just using our website right now, which doesn't have our water arts or any of this posted yet, but it will. So thanks for putting that link there, Ahmed. Yeah, and petitions are definitely another vehicle. We're starting with research, but at the end of this, you'll see how it comes together and how we hope to create some concrete actions. Community-based action research is not so much about the information, although helpful and helps us all understand on the same page, but it's really the actions that we need to take that make truly the difference we need for water here. And it's all connected. Like, even though we're making difference here for the water, it's all connected across this nation and the United States. It connects with oceans eventually. So hopefully what we're doing here can make a big difference and have an impact. So I will, I'll pass it there. Yes, we do have sea lamprey control though. But if there's anything else, I'll try to watch the chat while Alejandra and Hannah present the water arts, and you can continue putting the questions on there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, and Jody. So I will introduce myself again. I'm Alejandra Pascalasa from Colombia, and I'm a MyTech student. So, well, we have seen some elements, some important elements on the blue economy and freshwater culture art project, but there is a specific focus that we want to show you, and it's the water arts research. So we integrated this component that it's really fundamental to this research to make something that it's meaningful and also that it's committed with a positive transformation in the community and in Sault Ste. Marie. So at this point, our purpose is to engage, educate, celebrate, and also deepen the human connections to the fresh water. This is how we are trying to engage scientists, educators, and youth in stories that engage collaboration to mobilize actions that protect and restore the upper Great Lakes. So it is important to us to make meaningful connections in order to develop sensibility, right? And also to develop diverse methodologies as diverse as people to them to really express how we feel about fresh water, because we are living in a place with great access to the lake. And sometimes people just don't ask themselves about the water issues, about the access to that, about the health of the environment. So it is important to take some time and ask people how do they feel and how would we develop responsibility in the environmental care. So that's why we are like involving in general civil society in order to have as much as interaction as response that we can, handle. In the next slide, it's a huge graphic representation of specific components of this research, and Jody is going to, introduce this special table.
So this is a table that helped me understand what I was doing. And it basically shows on the left side, I know it's a lot of information, but on the left side, the stages are the 2 research projects, the blue economy and culture. And then the PAR stage just talks about, what are we doing to actually engage people in the community-based action research to get stakeholder input and those types of. So just focus on the first 2 rows. These are the research projects, and we list, that we have surveys. We also are looking at interviews, online surveys, and focus groups for the arts integrated. And then we're hoping that we can develop a baseline and some recommendations, especially with the blue economy, of what types of actions or policy changes are needed. And then from the cultural side, we're hoping that the community water art or sculptures can help promote more awareness of freshwater and get people thinking about how important the freshwater is to them. I know for me, growing up with the water, I've seen changes to it, and that's where my concern and my drive is actually coming from. And then we have some of the stakeholders listed there just as general groups, but they're not all inclusive, that's for certain. But at the end of all of this, once we collect the data for both of these research projects, we have a community development aspect of the project where we're hoping to bring any stakeholders involved in either project together to have a catechization cafe. So it's listed there in row 3 under methods. And that is from someone I truly admire, Dr. Simshima. She was one of my professors at with my PhD program, and she's the Canada Research Chair of Arts Integrated Research and has done some amazing work connecting community to knowledge and getting community to understand that knowledge in different ways. So it might be talking in dialogue or drawing. So there's a lot of different ways that people can engage in this cafe in trying to decide what the information actually means for us locally, and then creating an action plan. And then hopefully we can share those outcomes at a World Water Day some year, maybe even in 2023. Hopefully it's in person. And that will basically bring both projects together and share the knowledge and craft something of action that's going to help and make an impact. So I hope that makes sense.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you. Thinking that and involving all those elements, we are trying to build meaningful dialogues among water, and that's why we are taking different approaches, right? Because our first purpose in this stage of the research is make something with arts and co-creation. It is different from the traditional purposes and methodologies of the academic. But we believe that arts helps humanity to explore different sensibilities and different feelings among social life, that it's better to be discovered through this way. So I like to think that Theodor Adorno used to say that arts and also music are a path to know and understand better the social life. So, and that's why we are trying to celebrate freshwater culture and embrace indigenous wisdom using different materials and different space of creation. And also it is important to explore and see how can we make our freshwater resources sustainable through collective effort. But it is important, to make and to explore things regarding visual tools in order to feel and in order to develop different kind of responsibilities and also sensibilities among water and among what can we do to be change makers. So it is important with this research to celebrate and also be change makers and also follow the flow of the water and the flow of the arts and explore this freedom that arts led us to have. And also we are always thinking about developing actions that are respectful with the environment and to be always responsible because we are living in this place. This place is having us for a short amount of time, and our actions are going to be always having effects in the environment. So it is important to explore different connections, not just making surveys, making groups of discussion, but also involving different actors. So at this point, we want to ask you again, and the question that we had in the beginning of the presentation, and Hannah is going to help us, and she's going to have the word right now.
Thank you, Alejandra. I'll just quickly reintroduce myself. I'm Hannah Caicco. I'm a doctoral student, and I'm working closely with this great team of people on these two different research projects. At this point in the presentation, we were hoping to engage you once again in some thoughtful dialogue around the ideas that we presented and any thoughts that you may have around them. So I know a lot of great and valuable ideas were shared in the chat. I was vigorously taking notes, so they will be reflected in our own work as we go forward. But if there's anything else that anyone would like to share at this point, we're happy to take feedback now. And if not, we'll move to the next little portion that speaks a little bit more about the water arts side of our research projects.
Some words you were tossing around, I guess, sustainability, restoration, preservation, conservation, or whatever, as part of your action process. Do you have some measurement parameters that you're using as comparators? Like, where do we stand with some of this stuff, usage and quality of water, et cetera? And, when we start talking sustainability and that, how do we know if unless we have those comparators as to what direction we're heading in? Is that kind of clear, or is it muddy?
It's muddy for us locally here right now, but there are sustainable development goals, but they're not metrics per se, they're goals, right? So we want to find out in these different freshwater areas what is happening. They could be created into metrics, but if you see in the survey, there are some quantitative questions. So we'll get some measurables there, but there isn't standards that we're measuring ourselves against per se. But that is a good question. I mean, maybe
So
there
when
is.
you talk about sustainability and preservation and restoration, like sustainability, what are you referring to there then?
Oh, so just like with the circular economy, like how do we use the water in a way that when we put it back, we are considering how we are either helping to keep the waters clean or hurting. So it's looking at the circle of getting the raw material.
You're not talking about usage of the water. You're talking about bringing it in and out.
Yeah, the usage of it exactly is how to make it sustainable. So if we, like the clothing industry, for example, I mean, we don't have any clothing manufacturers in the Sioux from what I know, but their damage to water is huge. So that's why you'll sustainably, I mean, a lot of younger people I know support this. They'll shop more at Value Village and they'll get secondhand, or they'll remake, like I have a niece that remakes clothes, from used clothing. So just looking at how the cycle.
Conservation coming under sustainability then, or?
Yeah, well, I think so. I don't actually know. Conservation, I think it would be, but. Ahmed, have you seen conservation under sustainability? I think it's one.
So, it's like a one component of how to achieve sustainability. Like, so the way we think, at least in blue economy, when we talk about sustainability, we are looking at like what sort of industries or what the one that is already here and the potential ones that can come here and use water to have an economic growth, to have more jobs in this area, but at the same time by not hurting the environment. Now that's a tough job, right? By not hurting the resources that you are using, but then using that resources to achieve economic growth and stuff. So we are looking to find out what sort of industries or what sort of production process that is already here or can be a potential one in the area that can bring growth in the area, but not hurting it in the long run. So at the same time, we want to conserve the nature or the resources, the blue resources that we have, but at the same time, when we use it, we want to make sure that the growth that we are having here is sustainable. It's not that if it's like in general in economics, resources are scarce. So if you use it and if you don't use it sustainably, at one point in time, you lose the resources that you need for the production process, right? So to have a sustainable economic growth, you have to make sure that resources are there and it's being preserved so that you can use it for a longer period of time. So it's kind of a longer time plan of action for the area. So when we talk about sustainability, we kind of think about in that direction. And you were asking a great question, like how do you measure sustainability? How to understand that this process is more sustainable than the other process, like to compare. It's a tough question to answer. And at this point in our survey, we are asking some questions that has some quantitative meaning, like how people are using it, like in what amount people are using what sort of resources and things like that. And at the end, when we will be able to collect data and we'll be able to analyze the data, we would be happy to compare those things with the standard matrices that is there in the literature. So yeah, at this point, I guess this would be our answer, or my answer to the
maybe
question.
just one more comment. I heard you talk about production, productivity, economic, but how about individual users? How does that fall under your research? I understand from an industry perspective, but what about the individual users? Where do they fit in?
So yeah, thank you. So I mean, economics is all about decision making, right? So it's a decision making from individual level, going up at household level, and then nations or industry, and going up and up to the government level and business level. So every decision that we take as an individual has an impact as a whole, as a community. So in the survey, when we are asking questions, we are asking individuals about their own uses of water, how they're using it, how they're valuing it, what is the plan? Like, we ask people, when you go to the beach, what are the activities that you do that you think can impact the fresh water that you're using? So we will be collecting data on that. So individual uses of water will be a very important part of our research. And we'll see once the data will come, how people in this region are using, all the fresh water around them, and what sort of infrastructure or what sort of activities they are, doing that is around the freshwater, using the freshwater resources. So yes, we'll be asking questions that relates to individual decision making and has an impact on the overall climate.
And just to add to what Armin said, hopefully at the end of this, we'll have an idea of what a baseline would look like as well, right? Because I mean, there are sustainability metrics in like human, social, environmental areas, which includes economic, industry, things like that. And there's, there's emission metrics, there's financial metrics. We didn't want to go that route. We just wanted to focus on, what are people doing here? It could be individual, but it can also be collective, because as you know, organizations are just groups of individuals. So, and I was thinking more about conservation. That was a really good point. And I think from my own mind, like listening to Ahmed, I got to reflect a little bit, but like I try to conserve water and teach my kids, like, well, don't use the water if you don't have to, because it never comes out of the tap as clean as you get it out of there. So I don't know who shared that with me, but I try to conserve water that way. And it is part of sustainability, right? If we're just negligent and we don't try and conserve or make choices like buying local so that we don't have emissions going everywhere, or like the water bottles was on there. And I love seeing that, because I have a lot of colleagues that like water bottles, like plastic ones. And so just trying to get the awareness out that, we're doing some things that could potentially be harmful, and how can we make that change? So awesome questions. I hope we answered them a little bit. Any other questions? Yeah, that's a good point too, Maria. The sprinklers and the hoses, and for lawns and gardens. You say lawns and gardens. Rain barrels help with that, right? But I see people power washing decks and sidewalks and driveways. So yeah, there's a lot of water usage around here that, could potentially help us. So that makes me wonder if we have a question about that in our survey, because that would get people thinking, right? Like, how to use water in the summer to clean your garden. Like, do you use a power hose? Do you use a rain barrel? That's a good question, actually. Do you see an advocacy component evolving from your research? Yeah, hopefully there might be information on policy changes. Hopefully there's information on baseline metrics that we could start using. And obviously we can't do it alone. So what we're hoping is by bringing everyone together, we can figure out what's really meaningful to us as a community and a group, and who's willing to take the lead. There also might be a need to apply for government funding to support some of the work that needs to be doing, whether it's infrastructure, policy, hiring people, what have you. So I do see the advocacy as an important component of it. Sandra says it would be great to see more awareness in how to prevent plastic microfibers from washing clothing, entering the water and environment. Yeah, that is an awareness piece, because I taught some of my close loved ones about, that they're in toothpaste and they're in soaps that we use. So again, that's another piece that we could potentially ask questions of, like, do you use products with microfibers or damaging chemicals to the water or what have you? So that's a way we can address that. It's something that individuals can do, as well as appliance manufacturers. How to attach filters to catch microfibers. Oh, that's interesting. Do you know if a lot of manufacturers actually do that? Just wondering, Sandra. And Britta says filtration. Yes. Yeah, conservation is crucial to sustaining. And she says filtration is another important factor. Quantitative metrics of water. So when I started on this road, I was trying to figure out how, and I realized how complicated it was. I'm going backwards. So Alejandra, our heart hit, and we're wrapping up on time, but trying to figure out how we could get a baseline of our water quality. So someone says like quantitative metrics of water quality and quantity. That is really tough. So my colleague, Dr. Ashley Murky, she actually has some water monitoring stations in the river in different locations. But the thing is, it's like, it just measures a particular part of the water. Water flows all over the place. So to try and figure out like, that metric for quality it's really complicated. I looked at it and then I was like, there's not an easy answer for that one. Hence where I'm at right now. Is there any burning questions on here that anyone wants answered before we wrap up? Because it is 8:30. Interesting, Carmen. Okay, filters for washers, washing machines, yeah. Oh yeah, Margaret, the power washing city streets with large truck. Good point. Okay, I'm going to try to address, there's a lot of conversation. We should just have an event to chit chat about the comments in here. That's awesome engagement. Thanks everyone for your thoughtfulness and the comments that are in here. I'm going to pass it on to Hannah, but at the same time, I'm going to try and capture some of this to see if there's a burning question.
Yeah, Alejandra did perfect. You've already switched the slide. That's awesome. So I think Alejandra and I are going to share this slide. Basically, we'd like to share some of our next steps with you and some of the things we're doing out in the community to further promote our research projects. One of the initiatives we're doing is the Water Arts program. It's a project to engage the community or individuals to share their knowledge about water. We invited artists to create a piece of art in their preferred medium and express their freshwater perspectives. So it could be drama, photography, music, sculptures, and they're going to be displayed through Clerk Park and the public library. So the details around going to visit those pieces and getting your input and feedback on them will be promoted through our website. So we invite you guys to take a look at that website and see some details so you can understand where exactly to see those beautiful and special pieces that we've collected. So that'll all be reflected on our website, but also you can expect to see them on public display as of next week. We do have a shoreline cleanup on July 24th that we're hoping to engage community members, leaders, different groups to take part in, and that'll further promote feedback and initiatives within our research. So those are the two main things, but we invite you to continue to visit our website and engage with us because, as Jody mentioned, the team we have here is very collaborative, and we're always willing and excited to get valuable feedback from folks like you. So we appreciate you guys coming out tonight, and I'll let Alejandra finish us off here on this slide. Oh, that might have been it. So we thank you once again for coming out, for connecting, engaging, inspiring, and adding some perspectives that can really further our research. That slide does reflect our website link. So if you'd like further information or to get more involved, please visit our website and continue to engage with us because this research is important and your feedback and involvement is equally important. Thank you.
And I'm not sure if anyone has the survey handy, if you could just paste it in the chat, but we will email it out to everyone. And I was going to try and copy it there, but. Oh, the date of the Algoma Art Gallery exhibition, it's actually at the library, the Sault Ste. Marie Public Library, and it will be open next week. We're just finalizing some of the details, but these are really special artists that have come forward to do art for the water. And when people come to look at the art, we're going to have a QR code to a survey so that we can get a sense of how people might be thinking about water, get the community perception or perspectives.
Jody, I had a question for you, and I was going to put it in the chat, but I couldn't spell this. So could you explain what a catechization cafe is and how you hope to go about it and involve various participants?
Yeah, I don't know if any of you have participated in a World Cafe, but basically I'm still learning how to facilitate it, but it would present the results of the research to everyone in a layman's terms form so that everyone has a sense, what are the common themes we found? What is some of the data that came forward? And then after that data is shared, people would work in small groups and they would share their opinions and ideas around actions that are needed based on this knowledge. And from this sharing in a group dialogue, it may have an individual component so people can self-reflect first, and then they can communicate with one another. They could use art as a way of collaboratively sharing what they perceive is happening based on the information that was shared from the research. So it's got a part 1, information sharing component, the results of the research. Part 2 is an individual and collaborative reflection of what the research means, both like interdisciplinary, using arts, words, collective sculptural pieces, and then we share in the group what those findings are and come up with an action plan that is prioritized. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
I think it has a fancy word because it involves not just talking, it involves lots of different forms of expression.